Hello, Dreamforce. Everyone having a good event, I hope? Good, I'm glad. This session is called The Future of Retail, Redefining the Customer Experience. But as I've gotten to know these three extraordinary chief executives, I see this as a conversation about so much more. It's about understanding the idea of a shared place, real or digital, and how it can offer more than just a meeting of buyers and sellers. For them, there's a different sort of transaction at play. It's also about rethinking the very idea of commerce, using tech and other tools to meet the needs of underserved customers, to reduce stress on the environment, to make sure the communities they are a part of are healthy and thriving, all while doing what investors and employees want them to do, which is to compete locally and globally. So as we'll discuss today, the path to happy customers and shared and responsible prosperity starts by putting positive impact first. So please join me for this wonderful conversation and welcoming James Rhee, the CEO of Ashley Stewart, Marjolene Westerbeek, the president of Rituals Cosmetics, and Arnold Donald, the CEO of Carnival, the world's largest leisure travel company.
No, I think this is right.
I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Welcome. So I thought we'd start just by going right down the line and talk a little bit about where you are now and where you started. James, you and I've been so lucky. I've been able to interview you several times before and watch the Ashley Stewart story closely. It is an extraordinary one. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be the CEO of a fashion brand for Black women?
Well, hi everyone. So, yeah, I guess I'm a bit of an unlikely CEO. I live in Boston, and up until then I was an investor. So Ashley Stewart, on the surface of it, it's a retail business that is primarily directed at Black women selling fashion clothing in size 12 and up. I became CEO around 6 years ago, less from a professional perspective. It was more James as a person thinking that something was amiss as to why a brand that was so special to a group of women couldn't survive. Didn't have the resources that it should have had technologically, financially. To me, it was one giant metaphor of a lot of things that plague certain communities and underserved populations in the world, in our country. So it was more James, the optimistic and former high school teacher that wanted to understand better, like, what is it that is hurting this company so badly? So I quit my life in Boston, and for the last 6+ years, I have been the full-time CEO of Ashley Stewart. And
So bring us back to the day when you took on this job. I mean, there was no technology to speak of. The fixture, you need to sell the fixtures to be able to make payroll. I mean,
yeah, it was. I had to also hire a police officer to protect the employees because they were worried about being shot in the parking lot because the company didn't pay its bills. That was the state of the company, and today we're thriving primarily because the technology is amplifying the optimism and what we put into the customer base, saying to her, we believe that this brand has merit. We believe that you have merit. Let's go. And it's been a 6-year transformation, more culturally and zeitgeist-wise. I think some of the things that we're doing starting 6 years ago are very metaphoric societally as to trying to get customers to understand that we don't treat them as customers. I still don't understand why I'm not any different at home as I am at work. So
Right.
Why should people have these bipolar, tripolar lives? They should just be themselves all the time. And we put that in. And one of the things with our customers, she often is faced with the prospect of having to be someone that she's not in various settings. I don't think she particularly controls the narrative of who she is in various settings. And within the world of Ashley Stewart, first and foremost, I said to her, this is your world. You are the majority in this world. It's your voice, your face. So own it and act like it. And I'm going to be your best friend, and I'll be in the background helping you. So it's become more of a social movement fueled by capitalism than it is a retail business. And to do that, we've created this massive ecosystem and connected this community of 3.5 women with a Net Promoter Score of 90. And she's starting to use this vehicle as a way to amalgamate her influence in many other different ways. voter registration,
Right.
scholarships, multimedia projects.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Now, Marjolaine, unlike Arnold and James, yours is not a turnaround story, is it? You were sort of freakishly successful from the moment you took this on. I'm just looking at some of these numbers. More than 650 stores. You're in more than 2,000 department stores. You've had double-digit growth in over 25 countries. So could you take us back to day one? I would like to think of that you have executed on a grand plan, but I have to believe there's a little bit more serendipity in there as well.
For sure.
Okay.
And it's also a nice coincidence that we are both in teaching in our former lives, right? I used to be a geography teacher, but I happened to, end up with rituals, which is so close to my heart. And if I go back to the first years of our existence, which is the year 2000, it hasn't been always pink clouds and unicorns, of course not, but I think what helped us a lot, and we can now say that looking back, is that from the start, we had such a strong core brand narrative, which we all truly believed in. So Rituals, I'm sure you have been in one of our stores across the globe, but really values the fact that they encourage customers, people, if you will, in general, to really create meaningful moments. And in the first years, probably we were a little bit ahead of our game. It was maybe not so relevant because storytelling, it takes time for people to really dive into those stories and see what those stories mean for them.
Right.
But in the world we live in today, I think, the customer is so connected. And at Rituals, we really want to encourage people to really tap into their own authentic core. And it also is important for companies. If you don't know your own core, it's really hard to navigate in an ever-changing, complex environment. So really knowing who you are as a person and as a brand helps you to do the right things, to initiate the right partnerships, and to really have authentic connections with whomever you meet.
So how does that relate to your training and development of people, the human beings who meet the other human beings that come into the store? Because it seems to me that's going to be an incredibly important piece.
Yeah, obviously we invest a lot of training and education, and we talk about this matter a lot. But if you have visited one of our stores, you will notice that people who work for us in our stores, our store teams, fantastic, engaging managers. So we start with the recruitment piece. If you are able to engage with people, that's a huge part of the questions we ask and really the cases we build with them. But if you enter our stores, nobody's jumping on you with a hard sales pitch. You get offered a cup of tea, and I think it's pretty remarkable. And after the cup of tea, you get the time to drink it. We invite you to come to the water island for a 1-minute meditation or a hand treatment or a hand massage, if you will. And it's always about the connection with the customer because we want to be part of people's lives. And so it took us 8 years to become as successful as you refer to.
Yes, yes.
And those first 8 years weren't the easiest, but we always got back to our unique mission and truly, start figuring out what we needed to do, whom we needed to partner with to really bring that dream alive.
So Arnold, I want to bring you in here. Jim Cramer famously called you the person who may be the best turnaround artist of our time. No disrespect to James and Ashley Stewart. It's a pretty good bet he's right, though. You were on Carnival's board for 12 years, but you were quite literally dragged out of retirement to take on a company that was in real trouble. You'd never run a cruise line before, but you had a sense of the company's fundamentals, and you thought you could get it back on track. Could you take us back to the day when you accepted this incredible assignment? What the company was going through, and how you created how you created the plan that turned it around? Because I know you're good at creating plans.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Frankly, the company really was a solid company, but we had a number of incidents the cruise industry had. It was a perfect storm. There had been, a number of voyage disruptions. We had actually lost the ship, and that rarely happens. Once every 100 years or something. And we had some deaths, but we had other voyage disruptions that were much more publicized. But so did other cruise lines. And so the industry was, kind of under assault in many ways. And they called me, and I was at a different board meeting, and I'll never forget the call came, and And they said, are you sitting down? And I said, oh my gosh, what's going on now? What else has happened? And they said, oh, no, it's nothing like that. This is the lead director. He said, are you sitting down? I said, no, what's going on? He said, are you sitting down? I said, no. He said, well, Mickey Harrison, our chairman, and the board would like you to run the company. And I said, well, wait a minute, let me sit down, because I had never even thought about running a company. And I almost said no on the spot. And because I had retired, I was cruising through life. And,
all right.
And so, but, upon Mickey, I have so much respect for him. I'd known him for 12 years. And so we had a long conversation, and one thing led to another, so I decided to do it. And I should have been begging for the job. It's the best job in the world. But the key in anything, and I'm listening to you guys now, is to listen.
Right.
If you listen carefully, the world will reveal itself to you. The marketplace will tell you what you need to do. Our business is a simple business. We have to exceed guest expectations. Now, our highest responsibility and our top priorities are excellence in safety, environmental protection, and compliance. That's fundamental, okay? Without that, we can't exceed guest expectations. So that's number one. But after that, it's exceeding guest expectations. And if you listen carefully, the guests will tell you how to exceed their expectations. And if you listen to your employees, they have 150,000 of them from 145 different countries. And if you listen carefully to the employees, they will tell you how to deliver to the guests what they want in a way that's sustainable for the business. So I'm not a genius or any of that. I have developed a skill at listening and then acting on what I hear. So
I'm going with genius. Who's been on a cruise before? All right.
I love you guys. All of you who didn't raise your hands, talk to the people next to you and find out what you're
Listen
missing.
to them.
Yeah.
I have not been on a cruise. I am cruise curious, however, but I'm mostly curious about how all of you have learned to listen to your customers. So let's start there, because I feel like listening and loyalty are very intertwined. Arnold, can you start?
Yeah, for us.
Specifically, how do you listen?
First of all, we listen to everybody. So our current guests, we have 9 world-leading cruise line brands. One of every 2 people who cruise on one of our brands. So I sell 13 million guests a year, 90-something million passenger cruise days a year. And so we are constantly asking those folks, and because we are a city at sea. We have everything, entertainment, food, retail, of course. And so we are a complex enterprise. And we constantly survey the folks in an experiential way, because we don't want them to feel like they're guinea pigs. I mean, they're there to have fun and to enjoy themselves and have lifelong memories. And so we're constantly surveying there, but we also obviously survey all of you who don't cruise, and we do that multiple ways. But what we've learned is what resonates most with the guests that are most loyal to each of those brands, because every brand is different, and what resonates most with those guests. And then we discover people like them. And because the industry is so fragmented, the segments are, so differentiated. Our Seabourn, our ultra luxury cruise line, El Cetra caviar, Lay's potato chips, and frozen vodka at $2.31 poof is there. And then we have our mass contemporary, highly social brand, Carnival, where Steve Wozniak, we pay him to lecture on Seabourn, and he pays us to sail on Carnival, because it's a social brand. Everybody wants to party with the crew and with each other, or at least socialize, if not party. And so very distinct brands. We have a German brand, 98% German, a British brand that's 96% British. Very different cultures, very different. But if we listen carefully to what resonates, and then we look out in the broader population, identify people who at a point in time have the similar interests, then we have plenty of people to fill the few ships we have. We sail full. All the cabins in the world add up less than 2% of the hotel rooms. 500 million people a year travel around the world on holiday. The entire cruise industry sails 30 million people. Right. So we're underpenetrated in every market in the world, and there's plenty of population to fill the ships, because most of you did not raise your hands.
Right.
And so we have a great opportunity.
Right. James, if I understand your story correctly, it sounded to me like your journey to listening to your customer was learning to listen to your employees first. Could you start with a little bit about what you learned from them, and then how you turned that into a system?
Yeah. I think it almost started first listening to myself.
Okay.
First. I think you go through a life journey. I think I've said this to you, I'm more like I was when I was 10 than at any point in my professional or personal life. And I've tried to keep things very simple and transcendent. I focus on things like kindness, joy, math, fear, anger, sadness, love. That's it. And when you think through that simple a prism, things are pretty clear. We live in a world with so much disinformation and information. It's very easy to parse through all this information when you just focus on transcendency. And you live sort of out of body, and you look at yourself as if you were in a movie and you watch. So once I was able to do that for myself, I think that's part of what led to the decision to make a kind of a world-altering decision 6.5 years ago, asking myself, what am I? Am I a financier, or am I a advocate who likes helping people, and former high school teacher? And I'm like, that's me. And so that enabled me to listen well, because when you are so sure of yourself in terms of, that doesn't mean being confident, it means being realistic and objective about this is what I am, this is what I'm good at, what I'm bad at. It makes you able to listen so much more clearly. It doesn't allow you to put any of your own weird biases on words, on things. You can pierce and see truth very clearly. So when I went to the stores, it was very clear to me a couple things. That one, this woman reminded me of my mother. And my mother is not black, she's not plus size, her soul was similar. It was a hardworking, loyal, family-oriented woman who wanted her kids to do so well, and that she would do anything for her. And I'm like, okay, that's my mom. The second thing I listened to was her words. It had nothing to do about clothes. It was about just being in a safe place, right? Respected, safe place. The third thing was an increasing, we have to do this. I know that we're in a hi-fi conference, but lo-fi is incredibly important. And technology really does amplify just what, and like wealth amplifies your human nature. Technology does too. Mm. I was watching and listening for non-words. It's all the human cues, the crinkle in the eye, the shoulder shrug, the slump posture, hope. Like, you can see these things very clearly if you decide to listen and you just stop. That's why when you listen to music, you should close your eyes, right? So I would just not use words, and so I would just watch her body and not listen to what she was saying at times as well. And so that's what I did, and pretty clear it was to me that this had nothing to do about retail, that ultimately Ashley Stewart was a wonderful, safe place for a woman that is often misunderstood and has very few safe places available to her. And I said, that I'll fight for. And I'll fight to the death for that. For a retail company, I'm not sure I'm going to pull every bullet I have in my pocket for that. But for this safe place, for this woman, she's going to get the best of me. And that's what I listened to. But it was also, I want to emphasize, it's not listening to the demons in your own head first, and to really get to an egoless place. And I think the world it actually is so clear. And it makes you a better investor and friend, and it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
You're smiling. I want to get you in on this too, because I imagine that you've been through a similar experience, and I particularly am curious about how you listen to customers who are interested in beauty and interested in their faces and interested in being beautiful in different countries, in countries and in societies where beauty might be a challenge.
It's a great question. It's and especially maybe for me, I've moved to this country. I'm originally Dutch, moved to this country 2 years ago, and I think what I realized is you can talk a lot about different cultures, different countries, and focus on the differences, but you can also focus on what we have in common. And what I realize is that to be able to listen, you need to stay humble. You need to really stay open. And me coming to this country, fantastic, but I didn't know anything. Of course, I brought my experience and the stories, but you have to start all over again. And I think being humble and keeping yourself on your toes really makes a difference. And I think I have been involved in the business in Switzerland and in the Benelux and in France and in the UK and now here. And I learn every day from our people on the shop floor because they are our advocates and they really are able to share with me where we need to do a better job, where we need to deliver on. And I think there's beauty in really giving people the stage because in the end, it's not about me or about you or about you. It's about us all. It's about what you can deliver to do a better job. It's how you lift each other up. And that is, I think, the importance of listening. And we are in a business, we are very big in travel retail. We are very big in retail. We build 120 stores each year, 2,000 points of sale in wholesale, e-commerce, all of that. But if you're not willing to really listen and take a humble approach to it, you're lost anyway.
Right. So maybe we should get a little bit technical here, since we are at a technical conference, about some of the technologies that you've used that have really worked for you to make sure that you're in touch with the customer and in the communities that you serve, but also your forecasting. What do you see coming ahead for digital commerce?
You want me to go first?
Retail at sea, it's got to be a
absolutely.
big part.
So we have one of the most ambitious Internet of Things efforts on the way. We've got a couple of patents, with 45 claims, another one filed, and it's called Ocean. And so Ocean Medallion is a little device. This is like a little license plate. So we encrypted it anyway, but it's just a license plate, just identifies. We have sensors all over the ship, and it does everything. So it allows your embarkation, so it expedites embarkation, opens your cabin, so you don't need a room key or anything. You don't have to tap anything. The cabin, welcomes you. It sounds like a simple thing. I actually argued against it because I thought it was expensive to redo the doors and all that on the ships. But the reality is it's one of the greatest features for guests because they'll say, I'm back from the beach, I've got kids, I've got bags in my hands, I have drinks in my hand, and not having to look for a key is a huge, huge thing. It lets you know anyone in your group where they're on the ship at any point in time. That's one of the things we had to do because GPS is X, Y. We had to do the Z axis because the ship has vertical. And all of that, but it also works in retail. So you walk in the retail shop, you take what you want. And for us, retail is experiential. We try not to sell anything. We try to give people what they want, when they want it, how they want it. But we have an advantage because they're immersed with us for days and days at a time.
Right.
And so we can literally sell anything. We, at one point, and we may still be, I'm not sure, the largest art dealer in the world.
Really?
Because people on vacation, they have time, they're looking at art and et cetera. And so this allows just seamless, but most importantly, personalized, customized travel. If you look at your phone, it's your phone. It has your apps on the screen, it's your phone. It's personalized, customized to you. And that's where the world is headed, the future. And so this is personalized, customized travel because you could be at breakfast in one of the restaurants or the main dining area, and one of the wait staff will walk up to you and say, hey, I noticed you were scheduled for, and they'll call you by name, I know you were scheduled for yoga in 5 minutes. Would you like me to cancel the class or would you still like to go? And so you are getting personal service all the time. You're at a bar, they know your name. You walk up to the bar, they know your drink. You're in Alaska, or Princess or Holland America, the two best ways to go to Alaska by far. You're out on the bow of the ship, you see a whale, the people see a whale, they yell whale, you run out to see it, your drink will come to you. So you don't have to go back to the bar. So that's the future of travel. And this is on our Princess cruise lines right now, and it's on a number of ships, about 5 ships. We just had the first new build, Sky Princess, which is going to be named shortly in Florida and later in the month of December. And it's the first one that's coming out of the yard with the technology, but we have 4 other ships we've refitted. And so we're putting it across the Princess fleet, and then we'll look at where it goes from there. But is this or things like this is where it's headed, and it's all about personalized, customized travel, giving you, the opportunity to experience things the way you want, and that's what we do at retail.
How do you communicate to your customers or guests that their data is safe?
Yeah, that was another big concern I had. I said, well, because my daughter is, I don't know what gen she is, because she's not Z because she's a little older, but she will only use a flip phone because she doesn't want anybody to know anything about her. And
Good for her.
and so I was like, there's no way she would do this. So I figured a lot of people would opt out. What you discover is as long as people are getting a benefit, they opt in. And so we had 15,000 plus people over a weekend, on ships with this. 6 people opted out. At the end of the cruise, only 3. And so you almost have to opt in because we don't make you do it because we're guest centric. If you don't want it, we don't want to impose it on you.
Right.
But the reality is when they feel the experience, and then what we do is we flush the data. So we use the data 2 ways. One, real time. We're developing what we call experience masters because we can read everything on the ship and what you're doing and whatnot. We can tell when on the Lido deck when there's an overconcentration of people who like country music. So we can say, signal, hey, switch to country or whatever.
Wow.
But that data's gone. At the end of the cruise, the data is gone. We don't need the individual data. If you want us to keep it because you're going to sell us again, we'll be happy to, but you have to ask for that. Otherwise, we get rid of the data.
Marlene, I'm obligated to ask you about multi-channel because I know that is a huge part of how people, big brands interact with their customers. How did you first begin to develop your omni-channel strategy, and how has that changed over the years?
Well, I think it's always evolving, so there's no such thing, unfortunately, that you start and then it's there.
I know.
So I think it keeps us busy all the time, but I think we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and data and technologies, and it's really helpful, right? But then again, and that ties back to the beginning of our conversation, it's really, and I hear you say the same actually, how do you use that to create relevance for customers? And we operate across different channels, and I recognize a lot of what's been said here is if you are on holiday, you want certain brands or things as part of that journey. So that's, I think, what we try to accomplish. We have, of course, a huge, almost an Excel sheet with all our channels and what's happening everywhere, but you also want to try to be consistent. And every channel just plays a different role in the overall story. So retail, it's our brand at its fullest potential. It's really the brand from A to C with all the products, with all the categories, with all the stories. People who are telling those stories really, create the oasis we are aiming for to really make sure that people understand the brand. But in travel retail, it's just people start recognizing our brand and they like to be with rituals, not only at their homes, but also during their journey. So it's really, I think, it's a beautiful dynamic between artificial intelligence data on one hand, but you can never, ever make use of it in the best possible way without the human component.
Right.
So that's also the case in our 360 approach and in our omni-channel approach. You can launch the most beautiful initiatives in terms of, how you use your data or technology in stores. But if you don't spend time to really see what the journey is, for example, for your employees, how they can really utilize to really use it to their advantage, you drive them crazy.
Right.
So it's a complex thing, right? Even using iPads in stores where you have all generations and all cultures working, you really need to spend time to really take them on that journey. And it's as simple as an iPad, but that can even be really complex, right? So,
right.
So you want to use technology to your advantage, make life easier for everybody. And that's convenience for customers in cruise ships, and that's in the community you work in. And for us, it's basically the same.
Yeah. Can anybody on the panel give us an example of something that hasn't worked, that you tried and that you had to pull? I'm trying to get a sense of how you iterate and how long it takes for you to pull something. What's your tolerance for risk, expense, and pain?
Well, one of the things that hasn't worked for us, as I mentioned, we have 9 brands, 4 in North America, and trying to develop a loyalty program across the brands, where at any point in time you might be in the mood for multiple formal nights and whatever, and so you might take Cunard, transatlantic sailing on Cunard, but another time, you're with children or whatever, and you might want to choose Carnival, and so they have a cross loyalty program, but we have failed miserably at coming up with something that actually works, that is sustainable for our guests.
Okay.
And some of the challenges have been as simple as, people accumulate, through frequency of cruising, their status, and it's very important to them. I mean, the status thing is a big deal. It's a badge of honor. And the Carnival folks aren't so happy if a Cunard person comes on and has the same status that they have, and they've only cruised Carnival once. So it's not just having the person get the experience that they would have on their other line, it's the other guests accepting. And so that's something that, and maybe some of you can help me with this, but that's something that we have not been successful at all, and we've tried multiple things. So that would be an example.
All right.
Look, it's busily working on trying to show people that the future of commerce, that businesses are just an aggregation of people.
Yeah.
Not employees, not customers, it's just people. So companies form, the companies disband. Right? And I'm not as far along as I would like to be in getting other companies, turning our company, which is much more B2C, into B2B.
Okay.
So the whole premise of what we're trying to do is to amalgamate buying power, advocacy, influence, and I think that's what's drawing. It's like we're about to announce a big collaboration with the Jenners tomorrow, and that's why Whoopi came, and Lonnie Love, that they're seeing that this is an audience of people. The media people have gotten it quicker. That, wow, this is my fan base, so I can make money commercially and amplify my own brand through this community. And I said, well, that has a lot of commercial value to it. Where we have been failing so far, and I'm hopefully, Salesforce is a lot of our backbone, and we're talking about this. What we need to be is more, they've gone from B to B, more B to C.
Right.
I'm trying to take Ashley Stewart from B to C to more B to B, where I go to someone like you and say, listen, we've got this database with a Net Promoter Score of 90. When we post things and when we talk to her in the stores, we can steer massive purchasing decisions. And she listens to us, because the one currency that we've always had, even when people thought this company had nothing, and this is like a comment in your own personal lives, the most important thing you can have is your integrity. It's trust. It's your friendships. Everything else is just, having lost my mom, at the end of, no one cares that you were the CEO.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You have your friends, your integrity, your word. And so what we're trying to do is, with technology, is to show bigger partners that our little retail company, that we're actually not in the business of being in retail. We're in the business of having influence. It's been harder. And I think the zeitgeist, it's starting to catch up. The Gen Zs, they get it right away. But some more established companies, it's a harder leap to understand that you're actually trading in reputation. And these people that work at blank consumer product company, I remember doing a speech with Terry Lundgren at Macy's 5-6 years ago, and I just said, I took a picture of me getting a tie, because I was about to be on a panel with him, and I never wear ties, but I bought a tie. But I bought it at Macy's. And on the panel, I just said, that this person that helped me, and there was a picture, this woman that works for you at Macy's, she's my customer. We just share the same person. Wouldn't it be great to share this same, to swap CRM? Like, why can't we have this master devised system where I know everything about everyone? And that's what we're trying to do. So are we failing? Yeah, I think that we should be further along than where I want us to be. But it's a zeitgeist thing, and it's hard to divorce retail or consumer from just life. It's all it is. I don't think the world is quite ready for some of what we're trying to do.
Well, as I listen to all of you, so much of this requires that the world trusts who's in charge. You know, and it makes all the difference in the world to have a vision of leadership, to have a vision of what it means to be in a place, what it means to have people come into your life and literally trust you with their life. I know as I'm curious here, these are scary things. To be a cancer patient, to be a transgender woman, and who needs help, who needs advice on how to be beautiful. These are extraordinary things. How have you used the tools available to you to telegraph that you are trustworthy, that you think about these things?
Go ahead.
I'll keep it short. I know it's been uncomfortable for me personally. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. 2.5 years ago, some of the more youthful people said to me, hey, dude,
Youthful people.
you can try LinkedIn. Like, do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and I did it without a photo. Right, and they say you have to put a photo up. So I'm like just a very private person. I know that this journey, the last 6.5 years, I've really had to put myself out there to vouch for this company, vouch for these women, and we've swapped goodwill. We've swapped reputations. I gave her my friendships at Goldman and at blank, 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 and she gave me her friendships for 30 years in local communities and she said, he's a good guy. Like, we trust you. And that's our whole story. And so from a trust standpoint, it's putting a lot more pressure on leadership.
Yeah.
A lot more pressure on CEOs, but at every level, like not just CEOs. And it's my point about not being one way at work and one way in your personal life. It's people will look to see who you are at your core. And if you have nothing to market, if your core is rotten, whether you're a person, a leader, or a brand,
Right.
Exactly.
you fail.
Yeah.
Right. Marlene, you seem to have a spark there. Did you?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing that leadership over time changed a lot. You know, the approach to leadership 20 years ago was there's the leader and the leader leads the game. And in today's world, it's more about elevating others and it's more about being open and work on these big topics like diversity or sustainability, and also acknowledge that you cannot change the world in one day, but to be super on point of the efforts you are making and really commit yourself to it. So I think there's so much beauty in that, because it really underlines that it's about all of us. It's not about just one single person.
Right.
You know, for us, we're the cruise industry and broadly is under a lot of skepticism. You know, there are people who haven't cruised who, you know, are concerned about cruising because there's myths about cruising that aren't true. There's skepticism on environmental responsibility, skepticism on sustainable tourism responsibility, so on and so forth. And so, you know, it's stuff we have to do it all. But the key for us, it is really simple. It's our people. And so when people do cruise and they meet the crew, happy guests. Happy locals, happy guests. Nobody wants to go to a place where the locals don't want them there.
They hate them.
And so for that to happen, we have to do a lot of right things. You know, we have to provide the opportunity for our people to feel valued and feel like they're making a difference and they're having fun in addition to working like crazy. We have to have the locals feel we're respecting. It's their home. We are guests coming to their home. And they have to feel like we're respecting their home and we're respecting their wishes. And so, you know, we have to build that trust every day. We make mistakes. Mistakes happen. We have thousands of itineraries, hundreds of ships, and so on and so forth. And it's how you react and respond when you make those mistakes that builds trust, you know, in people as well. And so it's an ongoing effort. What I started personally with is making sure our people trusted each other. And when I first came in, the first thing I said was I took my leadership team and I said, over the next 5 years, look ahead 5 years and look back. What does success feel like to you, for you and your family first? Forget about the job, forget everything. Second thing is, what does success feel like for your brand or your department? And then third, for this corporation. And I made them talk to each other, because it's 9 brands, they hadn't worked together. and they had to report out what the other person said.
Okay.
And so they had to practice listening. And they got all excited because they all came up with similar things and they found value in each other as family members and so on. And they were ready to run. And I said, nope, because if I told you that, you wouldn't feel the same way.
Right.
So we have to do that with the people that report into you. And they have to go through the same process. And so you build trust through exchange. And the last comment I'll make is, and that's what travel is. Travel in a lot of ways is an antidote to ignorance. So whether it's guest to guest, guest to crew, crew to crew, guest to locals, crew to locals, et cetera, we take people to destinations all around the world, 700 ports, 7 continents, even here to the United States. And people discover what they have in common. And when they do, they learn to appreciate and celebrate the differences rather than fear them. And so travel is all about building trust in humanity.
Yeah.
And that's really what travel is, and we're a part of travel.
Since you mentioned sustainability, I thought I could get you to walk us through your thinking on how you've been able to create sustainable lines that still delight customers and are still profitable. Is it the Namaste line that I'm thinking about? Could you tell us a little bit about the development of that?
Yeah, I think maybe let's start with how our sustainability kind of started. The sustainability is a big word. It's also about your social responsibility. It's about your supply chain, your packaging. Well, you can name it. It's super broad. And it was also always a big topic to us. And then, for example, for years and years, we support initiatives in India, which is called Tiny Miracles, and it helps communities to break through their poverty cycle. Sustainability obviously came more and more relevant in the past years. And we are so we hired an external company who's basically our teacher and guiding us the way. So we are in the middle of life cycle assessments. So we really hear from outside eyes what we need to do better, where we can improve. And we take that super seriously. And I think it helps that our internal sustainability, they happen to work for Rituals, but their heart is really connected to that mission. So they put lofty goals in place and are really getting us there. And I think sometimes it's really about simple things. It doesn't mean that it's simple to accomplish, but so we sell millions of gift sets across the globe in so many markets on a yearly basis. And now we changed our approach to those gift sets and, made beautiful gift sets who doesn't need additional gift wrapping. And then when you have used all your products and you happen to like them, you can buy refills for them all. And the inlays where the products are presented is 100% compostable. So you put it in your sink, you put on the water and it disappears. And so what I was telling you guys earlier, it's not so much about... And some people get caught up in the whole thought and what you should do to become more sustainability, but it's just, get things done. Really put it on your radar, make it a common goal, and really use external companies to keep you on your toes and keep on challenging you, and then go and execute what you are able to do. And that's so much.
Yeah.
And on a smaller scale, I think all our country teams across the globe, so in 2 weeks from now, the whole US corporate team is going to a school in New York with children whose parents are in prison or they are just orphans. And we try to make a difference for them. And that's also, I think, a social responsibility we all have. So it's not beautiful that we are very much into that. It's a necessity that we care about each other and that we make a difference for each other. And especially for those who don't have the same opportunities. And, I happen to work for Rituals, but aside of that, I'm a meditation teacher and geography teacher. So you want to make use of what you are, maybe good at or whatsoever.
Or what you're drawn to.
Yeah. For people who really deserve that extra, encouragement or even, just a hug or your presence. So it happens on every layer and...
We are almost out of time. Arnold, I wanted to give you the last word because we had a really moving conversation as we were preparing to come on stage that was really about courage. It's about preparing to address the status quo, preparing to change a world that needs to be changed. So I was wondering if you could just leave us with a little bit of advice for how leaders at any level could generate the courage that they need to generate to address a truly challenging world?
Yeah. You know, though, as we talked, you know, the world is topsy-turvy, and I was mentioning that I gave a commencement address at a university some years ago, and I was trying to make it special for the graduates. So I looked at their decade and what was special about their decade and what their future would look like. And I went back to the mid-1800s trying to figure out what was different about their decade, because every decade is the same. Every decade has all these challenges. Every decade had genocide, war, economic malaise, disease, natural disasters, every decade. And so what I discovered was that it's just their turn. And what they do with their turn will determine what that generation, a few other generations, you know, are going to be like. But it's just their turn. And so I think the courage for all of us is just to realize it's just our turn. You know, we were talking about environmental advances when I grew up in the 60s and 70s, the eutrophication of lakes and streams. It was the energy crisis. I was part of a company, a chemical company, where their chairman was lambasted by the chemical industry because he said, we're going to eliminate 95% of all the waste we generate in the next 5 years. We're going to reduce our waste by 95%. This was in the 70s, okay?
Right.
And so we have to stay on the march, you know, and I think you all have the courage. I think it's just to realize that it's our turn, and it'll be the next group's turn, and we just have to figure out the best we can do to make certain that the quality of what we create is better for everybody.
Well, that is a wonderful end to note on. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all of you for sharing your wisdom, and I'm so glad that each of you have your turn and are making the most of it now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.